To every black man and woman in Harlem, in Kingston, in Lagos, in Bahia, in Paris, in Johannesburg, I speak to you today not as a president, but as a brother. I did not come to offer inspiration. I came to demand awakening. For too long, they have separated us. By ocean, by passport, by language. They said you are African American, you are Caribbean, you are Afro-Latin, you are African, as if our pain had different origins. But I tell you this truth. We were broken in different places, but by the same hands. They took some of us in chains and left others in colonies. They built plantations in the West and borders in Africa. They taught our cousins in America to forget Africa and taught Africans to distrust those who returned. And while we argued over flags, they continued to profit from our division. So I speak now to our entire family, scattered not by choice but by force. You, in the streets of New York, marching against police bullets. You, in the fields of Haiti, where hunger is a weapon. You, in the townships of South Africa, surviving promises that never came. You, in the favelas of Brazil, where black skin is treated as a crime. You, in the villages of Mali and Burkina, holding the last pieces of land our ancestors left us. Listen to me. You were never minorities. You are a scattered nation. They want you to believe your fights are different. They want you tired, ashamed, disconnected. They want you dancing to their music, wearing their names, speaking their tongues, yet unable to speak to each other. But hear me now. The system that kills you in the streets of America is the same system that steals from us in Africa. The bullets that strike you are funded by the gold they take from us. The prisons that cage you are built with the wealth they drain from African soil. We are not facing different enemies. We are facing one enemy in different masks. I am not here to comfort you. I am here to remind you. You are not powerless. You are disconnected. And that is exactly what they fear. That one day the children of Harlem and the children of Ouagadougou will speak the same language, resistance. So today I do not send you a speech. I send you a message. Wake up. Not as citizens of different nations, but as one black world. They broke us in two halves, one taken across the sea, one kept under the sun. They took you and they kept us. You became slaves in foreign lands. We became slaves in our own land. They wrote different chapters for us, but in the same book of suffering. You were chained in ships. We were chained by taxes. You were beaten in fields. We were beaten in schools. You were told you had no past. We were told we had no future. The lie. They fed you to those in America, Europe, the Caribbean. They said, Africa sold you. They wanted you to hate your origin. To those of us in Africa, they said, the diaspora abandoned you. They wanted us to doubt your return. They poisoned our memory because they fear what happens if we recognize each other again. If the stolen and the colonized begin to speak as one, their empires end. They gave you freedom without power. Yes, they passed laws. Yes, they granted civil rights or independence. But freedom without land is prison without walls. Independence without control is a flag without authority. In America, they gave you rights, then built prisons to contain you. In Africa, they gave us flags, then built banks to control us. They kept you captive with bars. They kept us captive with debt. Same master, different chains. The Africa they hid from you. They did not want you to remember that Africa had empires before Europe had nations. They did not want you to see a continent that gave birth to mathematics, metallurgy, medicine, long before they called us primitive. So they showed you famine, not fertility. They showed you war, not wisdom. They showed you huts, not history. And you were taught to return as tourists, not as heirs. Why I speak to you now, I am not calling you back to Africa to live here. I am calling you back to Africa to belong here. Not everyone must return in person. Some will return in investment, some in skill, some in voice, But all of you must return in loyalty, because a people scattered can be hunted. A people connected cannot be conquered. You were taken by force. We were kept by force. And now we must rise by choice. To my brothers and sisters in America, the Caribbean, Brazil, Europe, I speak to you with truth, not comfort. You were not freed. You were forgotten. They did not liberate you. They abandoned you with new chains. Chains of poverty, chains of policing, chains of identity loss. They ended slavery only to begin a new science, the science of silence. They freed your body, but kept your history. They erased your language. They renamed your ancestors. They reduced your kings to tribes, your queens to myths, your empires to villages. They allowed you to vote, but not to own. They allowed you to speak, but not to remember. And every time you rose, they built something new. Laws, prisons, chemicals, campaigns. But still, you rise. They kept us apart on purpose. When African nations gained independence, they did not invite you home. They feared what would happen if the survivors of plantation pain joined those who survived colonial rule. Imagine, Harlem's strategy with Sahel conviction, King's dream with Sankara's discipline, Malcolm's fire with Nkrumah's blueprint. That was their nightmare and must become our mission. Your identity was not lost. It was stolen. Do not let anyone tell you you have no roots. Your roots are not beneath you, they are behind you, and we are here, holding them, waiting. Return, not to geography, but to genealogy. You are not African because you were born in Africa. You are African because Africa was born in you. Why I call you now, I do not ask you to leave America. I do not ask you to abandon Brazil, Jamaica, Haiti. I ask you to remember who you are, so that when the world tries to define you, you can redefine yourself. We do not need your applause. We need your alignment. Stand with us, speak with us, invest with us, fight with us, not with weapons, but with will. A promise from Africa. I cannot promise you comfort, but I promise you connection. I cannot give you luxury, but I offer you legacy. Africa today is not calling for tourists. Africa is calling for tribunes, those who do not just love Africa, but are ready to build her. They left you behind. We now bring you forward. They do not fear African countries. They do not fear African Americans. They do not fear Haiti, Jamaica, Brazil, or the Congo. They fear what happens the day we stop seeing ourselves as separate struggles and realize we have always been one nation, scattered. The system fears a united black world, not because of our numbers, but because of our knowledge. We were once kings of empires, builders of universities, masters of metal, medicine, and mathematics, long before Europe knew what a compass was. They are not afraid of our fists. They are afraid of our memory. Why they keep us divided? They gave Africa flags. They gave the diaspora passports. But they never gave us ownership. They taught Africans to mistrust those who left. They taught the diaspora to pity those who remained. They tell Africans, the diaspora forgot you. They tell the diaspora, Africa abandoned you. Both are lies. We did not abandon. We were abducted. The day we recognize each other, they fall. Imagine this. African gold funding black schools in Chicago. African universities training engineers from Jamaica, African defense built by Afro-Brazilian architects, Pan-African media owned by us, not by them. What bank could sanction that? What army could stop that? What empire could survive that? This is why they push fear of Pan-African unity. They fear when Malcolm's fire meets Sankara's clarity, when Angela Davis meets Miriam Makeba, when Harlem speaks to Ouagadougou. Their greatest nightmare. They do not fear our riots, they fear our reunion, because the day the diaspora sees Africa as home and Africa sees the diaspora as army, their control is finished. 1 billion Africans on the continent, 200 million across the seas, all with one message. We are not asking to be included. We are preparing to be independent. We are not here to participate. We are here to prevail. We do not want equality inside their system. We want the power to replace it. We are not here to reform the table. We are here to reclaim the land it stands on. They will call this dangerous. They will call us radical. But I say this, when the oppressed remember their strength, the oppressive call it radical, so be it. To my brothers and sisters in the United States, they call you a minority, but how can the children of Africa ever be called a minority? You are not a minority, you are the lost majority. They reduce you to statistics, they hand you slogans like diversity and inclusion. But inclusion into a system built on your oppression is not progress, it is containment. They want you to fight for a seat at their table. You march, you vote, you plead. Yet every time you rise, they change the law, they change the curriculum, they change the target, they give you symbols, holidays, slogans, celebrities, but never systems. Land, media, industry, weapons. They say you are free, but freedom without ownership is captivity without chains. You hold the key they fear. Understand this, Black America is not a community. Black America is a sleeping nation, a nation with soldiers in every street, a nation with artists who move the world, a nation with intellects who built empires they were never allowed to own. And one day, when Black America decides not to integrate, but to initiate, the world order will shake. Your enemy is not your neighbor. They want you to believe the enemy is another citizen, another color, another class. No. The true enemy is the system that profits every time a Black child is killed, incarcerated, or miseducated. It is the same system that profits when an African village is robbed of its mine. Different continents, same corporation. Return with power, not passports. I do not ask you to return to Africa with luggage. I ask you to return with loyalty. Bring your engineers, not just your entertainers. Bring your scholars, not just your slogans. Bring your builders, because Africa needs architects, not applause. A nation without a land is a nation in exile. Black America, hear me. You are not fighting for access. You are fighting for alignment with the continent that was stolen from you. Do not let them trick you into believing you are alone. You are 200 million strong across oceans, and Africa is waiting, not for your return, but for your recognition. You are not minorities. You are the unfinished sons and daughters of empire. Act like it. To the sons and daughters of Haiti, to the warriors of Jamaica, to the black soul of Brazil, I speak to you with reverence. You were the first to burn the plantations. You were the first to defeat empires. You were the first to declare, "We would rather die free than live enslaved." And because of this, they punished you for 200 years. Haiti, the nation. They tried to curse Haiti. You rose against France and shattered the myth of white invincibility. For that, they chained you with debt, they starved you with embargo, they mocked you with disaster. But I tell you now, you are not a failed nation. You are a feared nation, a nation that proved Africans could rule themselves without masters. Never forget, every black revolution carries Haitian blood. Jamaica and the spirit of resistance. Jamaica, birthplace of defiance, land of Garvey, land of drum and dread. They want your music, but not your message. They celebrate your rhythm, but fear your rebellion. Marcus Garvey told us, "The black man must control his own destiny." Today, I repeat it, control does not begin in the microphone, it begins in the land. Brazil, the hidden African nation. Brazil, where the largest population of Africans outside Africa exists, yet you are told you are mixed, forgotten, assimilated. No, you are the grandchildren of Colombos, escaped slave kingdoms who built free republics in the jungle. You did not disappear, they simply stopped teaching your history. To all who survived the plantation. You were never supposed to survive. You did. You were never supposed to remember. You have. Now you are not meant to unite. So that is exactly what you must do. What I ask of you now, do not come to Africa for nostalgia, come for strategy. Bring your fighters, your thinkers, your builders. Bring your pride, your pain, your prophecy. Together we are not diaspora, we are returning soldiers. You survived the plantation. Now together let us end the empire. Africa, my homeland, my burden, my awakening. It is time we stop calling for help and start calling for unity. We are not the children of poverty, we are the authors of civilization. Yet we sit, waiting for validation from those who once colonized us. We wait for loans to build what we already have the hands to create. We wait for peace from those who sell us weapons. No more waiting. We must lead, not plead. I say this to every African nation. Stop negotiating your dignity. Stop outsourcing your survival. The world does not respect countries that beg. The world respects countries that build. We must produce, not just protest. We must create, not just commemorate. And when the world refuses to open doors, we must build our own. Unity is not a dream. It is a strategy. They fear African unity more than African armies. They know that if Africa negotiates as one power, there is no G7, there is only G1. Africa, imagine one African currency, one African satellite system, one African defense pact, one African food reserve. This is not fantasy, this is foundation, but unity will never be given. It must be taken. Stop expecting justice from those who profit from injustice. Africa, how many times will you go to Paris and return with insult? How many times will you sign agreements that sign away your children? They do not come to save you. They come to study how you survive while they exploit your survival. So I say, do not ask the world to treat you equally. Build a world where you cannot be ignored. Africa, hold your ground. We are not behind time. We are before our destiny. And I promise you this, the world will resist a rising Africa. But resistance is proof of power. We are not here to fit into history. We are here to change it. It is not enough to awaken. We must build. The black world, Africa and her scattered sons and daughters, must construct what our enemies fear most, independence. Not symbolic independence, not flags and anthems, structural independence. In economy, in information, in defense. Economic power, from survival to sovereignty. We cannot remain consumers of other nations' factories. We must become owners of our own production. Diaspora capital must return not as donation, but as investment in African manufacturing, African agriculture, African technology. We must trade with each other before we trade with them. Education, replace their history with our truth. They educated us to admire their achievements while forgetting our own. From Timbuktu to Kush, from Aksum to Mali, we must reteach our greatness so that our children stop asking for permission to dream. Let every African child know, mathematics, astronomy, governance, we did it first. Media and voice, end the single story. We cannot allow our image to be painted by those who profit from our suffering. We need African-owned news agencies, Black-controlled media networks, platforms that do not show our hunger but our potential, because the one who controls the narrative controls identity. Defense. Protect what we build. A nation with no army invites invasion. A people with no defense invites manipulation. I am not calling for war. I am calling for readiness. Africa must never again rely on foreign soldiers to protect African soil, and the diaspora must know our global defense is not military, it is unity. The new generation must do what the old could not. United, we hold the numbers. United, we hold the resources. United, we hold the destiny. What is missing is not power, but plan. Let this be the plan. Build what we were never allowed to finish. Guard what we were always meant to own. To every son and daughter of the black world, this is my final call. They expected us to remain divided. They expected us to remain wounded. They expected us to remain grateful for chains with new names. But I stand before you to tell you, the era of gratitude is over. The era of greatness begins. You are not fighting for equality. You are fighting for existence. Equality inside a burning house means nothing. We are not here to be included. We are here to inherit. We do not want a seat at their table. We want our table, built on our terms, on our land, for our children. Remember this oath. No black child anywhere on earth should die in a world that his ancestors built. Not in America, not in Haiti, not in Brazil, not in Africa. We built the first civilizations. We built their wealth. We built their empires. Now, we must build ours. The time for mourning is over. We have cried for centuries. We have marched for decades. We have begged for lifetimes. But tears do not build nations. Action does. If you must cry, let it be the last tear you shed unarmed with purpose. To the black world, this is your order. Unite your voice. Unite your skills. Unite your resources. Not for revenge, for reconstruction. Build banks. Build schools. Build defense. Build memory. Let every generation say of us, they did not complain. They created. My last word, I do not speak to be applauded. I speak to be echoed. I may fall tomorrow, you may never see me again, but if my voice survives in you, then I have not fallen, I have multiplied. Wake up, stand up, build what they fear, a black world without permission, because the day we stand as one, no power on earth can stand against us.